Don't compare yourself with other people. Compare yourself with who you were yesterday. The truth is something that burns. It burns off dead wood, and people don't like having the dead wood burnt off, often because they're 95% dead wood. Accept the terrible responsibility of life with eyes wide open. I don't tell people, you're okay the way that you are. That's not the right story. The right story is, you're way less than you could be. Don't lie about anything, ever. Lying leads to hell. It is more difficult to rule yourself than to rule a city. There's a personality trait known as agreeableness. Agreeable people are compassionate and polite, and agreeable people get paid less than disagreeable people for the same job. Women are more agreeable than men. Free speech is not just another value, it's the foundation of Western civilization. If you don't stand your ground, then all that happens is people push you backwards. It's in responsibility that most people find the meaning that sustains them through life. It's not in happiness. It's not in impulsive pleasure. No one gets away with anything, ever. So take responsibility for your own life. Part of the core information that I've been purveying is that identity politics is a sick game. You don't play racial, ethnic, and gender identity games. The left plays them on behalf of the oppressed, let's say, and the right tends to play them on behalf of nationalism and ethnic pride. I think they're equally dangerous. It's very hard to find your own words, and you don't actually exist until you have your own words. The people who hold that our culture is an oppressive patriarchy, they don't want to admit that the current hierarchy might be predicated on competence. The connection between psychology, mythology, and literature is as important as the connection between psychology and biology and hard sciences. The idea that women were oppressed throughout history is an appalling theory. Women deeply want men who are competent and powerful, and I don't mean power in that they can exert tyrannical control over others. That's not power, that's just corruption. Power is competence. I've studied authoritarianism for a very long time, for 40 years, and they're started by people's attempts to control the ideological and linguistic territory. Life is tragic. You are tiny and flawed and ignorant and weak, and everything else is huge, complex, and overwhelming. To me, ideology is corrupt. It's a parasite on religious structures. To be an ideologue is to have all the terrible things that are associated with religious certainty and none of the utility. If you're an ideologue, you believe everything that you think. If you're religious, there's a mystery left there. Become aware of your own insufficiency. Happiness is a pointless goal. Music has an intrinsic meaning, which has always been mysterious to me. It makes sense that a witch lives in a swamp. Once someone has spent enough time cultivating bad habits and biding their time, they are much diminished. Much of what they could have been has dissipated. As pessimistic as I am about the nature of human beings and our capacity for atrocity and malevolence and betrayal and laziness and inertia and all those things, I think we can transcend all that and set things straight. Men and women aren't the same, and they won't be the same. That doesn't mean they can't be treated fairly. Part of the reason there's an injunction to the truth, for example, is that if you're in a circumstance of extreme uncertainty, your best weapon, let's say, or your best tool or your best defense is the truth, because it keeps things simpler. If you're going to be successful, you need to be smart, conscientious, and tough. There's no doubt that inequality destabilizes societies. I think the social science evidence on that front is crystal clear. It's a small percentage of people who do an 80-hour-a-week, high-powered career thing, and they're almost all men. Why? Well, men are driven by socioeconomic status more than women. I'm not going to be a mouthpiece for language that I detest. I have a hard time figuring out what kind of box to put me in too, because I don't know exactly what's going on around me or why, but I need to stay outside of boxes because then I can look at what's inside of them without being part of them. One of the things I've told men over and over and over and over is if you're being rejected by all women that you approach, it's not the women. If you learn a martial art, you learn to be dangerous, but simultaneously, you learn to control it. I'm always surprised when people respond positively to what I'm saying, given its seriousness and strange nature. You can say, well, isn't it unfortunate that chaos is represented by the feminine? Well, it might be unfortunate, but it doesn't matter, because that is how it's represented. It's been represented like that forever, and there are reasons for it. You can't change it. It's not possible. This is underneath everything. The masculine spirit is under assault. It's obvious. The answer to the problem of inequality is for the people who are fortunate enough to either have been gifted or deserved more to do everything they can to make the communities around them as strong as they possibly can. You have to listen very carefully and tell the truth if you're going to get a paranoid person to open up to you. If you're not going to be rewarded for your virtues and instead you're going to be punished for them, then what's your motivation to continue? People have this capacity within them to set the world straight. It's very difficult to regulate yourself, and if you learn to do that, well, it starts to spill over. I happen to be a big fan of Western civilization. I think it beats the hell out of tyranny and starvation. You can't have a value structure without a hierarchy. They're the same thing because a value structure means one thing takes precedence over another. If you want to occupy the C-suite or the top 0.1% in any organization, you have to be obsessively devoted to your career at the expense of everything else. And women look at that and they think, no,